up. I hope that I can do the same for you. You were there when no one else would. Take the burden away, that's how we do. Sister, I need you to walk with me on this journey. Yes, hold me accountable, cause sometimes I need to know the truth. Sister, I love you. We're one and the same cause we.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to the Woman to Woman show on the New U Nation Network. We are back again another Monday.
Yes,
So,
grateful to see it.
yep, I'm excited to be here. So, how are you ladies doing today?
Grateful, doing well.
Yes. Yes.
All right, so I guess we can start as we normally do with our introductions. And so, who wants to start out?
I'll go. My name is Manetta Fields. I am a 33 plus year credential healthcare professional. I own Holistically Motivated that helps us look at all aspects of our lives and get it together. I'm also a certified essential oil specialist, certified in essential emotions, and I am super grateful to be joined by the beautiful company of you ladies where we get together and bless others with our experience. I am grateful to have celebrated another birthday since we were last together. Yes. And I was able to do it with those close family members on a little beach getaway and
Nice.
grateful to feel well and be well.
Oh my God, that's so amazing.
That
Taurus
is
season is Taurus
okay. Okay.
All right, Sheila, it's on you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Sheila Isom. I am an insurance claims professional. I am an independent stylist for Color Street, and I sell nail polish strips. I am also a notary public and a soon to be budding voice actor. And I am grateful. While I'm always grateful for to be in the company of our esteemed Theodore Carter. Um, I am grateful to be on here once again with our Netta. Hey, Netta.
Hey, Netta. Yeah. And so I guess it's on me. I am Theodora Carter. I am a certified professional coach, career coach, life coach, HR consultant. And I am also very delighted to be here with my co host, Sheila and Netta, who will be right back to join us. And, and also grateful to be feeling better because I had a little
Yes.
vertical episode. So I
Yeah,
am grateful.
you've been under the weather for a few days, huh?
Yeah, so I am grateful to be feeling better. Um, this evening. So, because if anyone has had vertigo,
Oh,
you know.
yeah, I haven't, thank goodness, but I know people who do experience that, and it is no joke.
Yeah, I mean, it just came, and it's crazy because it just came on like that Thursday. But yeah, I am definitely just excited not to have to go through that anymore. I got, and I'm a little silly, so I woke up Thursday, and I guess this will take us into our topic because we're talking about self care and support
Mm-hmm,
and our
mm-hmm.
emotional well being, right? And you guys know me, I woke up Thursday not feeling too well. And I woke up to actually work out with my crew because, I work out with other friends that ride the Peloton. And I was like, all right, ladies, instead of 7, let's do 7:30, right? And then I was like, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it because I'm not feeling well. But then I proceeded to log on.
Oh, good for you.
And log on to work, right? So...
Right?
So I was like, okay, now you already know you wasn't feeling too well. And then I did like one impromptu meeting that wasn't scheduled. And then I had a meeting scheduled. And after that meeting, I was like, you know what? I'm going to listen to the advice that I give everybody else. And I'm about to tell these people that I'm taking off and I'm going back to bed.
So here.
And so I literally was like, okay, crawled back into bed, went to sleep. And then the next day got up and took some over-the-counter stuff, wasn't feeling well. So then I called like telehealth. Because yes, I am the girl that if I'm not feeling well, I'm going to the doctor, whether it's video or it's in person. I couldn't drive there, so I did a video.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it was so like when we came up with the topic, I was like, it's so true because it's amazing how we can tell everybody else to take care of themselves and to know when to step back, right? But we forget, because I literally was sitting here trying to do meetings and I was like, girl, and then trying to zigzag back to the room like I'm drunk, right? Because it is no joke. So anybody that struggles with vertigo, I sympathize with you because I know the feeling, right? But so let's talk about it. Let's talk about just pouring back into ourselves and how it supports our emotional well-being.
Yes, let's do that. I guess it would be, I don't know if you've done this, but defining self-care.
Mm-hmm. Nope, you go ahead.
It's the definition that I liked, and it says intentional actions that restore and maintain well-being.
Mm-hmm.
The intentional part.
I love it.
Yes.
Know I am the intentional queen. So, but it does have to be intentional. Like it really does. And even though you have those momentary lapses, like I did, right? At some point, you have to intentionally think about: am I doing what's best for my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health?
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So, so what are some of the ways that you guys practice it? I'm so excited to have you back, Netta.
I know, right?
Yes. So, of course, for me, I like to think of self-care throughout the day, from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, because it can be part of the whole day. Yeah. So in the morning, having some time to get yourself ready for the day. And again, doing that in an intentional way, versus my old self when I had to work in the hospital, jumping up, rushing to get the kids together, rushing to throw the meals together, put the kids in the car, rush to drop them off, and then rushing to work. And all of this, starting the day that way is just not wise. Yeah. And it requires some planning. Mm-hmm. And it's a vicious cycle, right? Because if you go to bed late, then you don't want to get up early. Yeah. And you want to hit that snooze button multiple times, which then steals from the rest of your day. Yeah. So, thinking of how you start your day, I think is a great way to begin self-care.
Yeah. I think definitely thinking of how you start your day, and then like you said, how you're ending your day, right? Mm-hmm. Because for me, one of the things I know I had to work on was actually being intentional about going to bed at an appropriate hour, because I am the girl that I prefer to work out in the morning. But if I don't get into bed at a certain time, then like you said, when that alarm clock goes off, snooze, snooze, snooze. Next thing you know, I'm getting up, and now instead of working out, I want to get in my prayer time before I have to jump on to work, right? And so I think it's really important also to prepare yourself and plan. And I think DC Marshall probably a couple of weeks ago had shared with me and a couple of the other board members from Girlfriends Pray some tips, and she was just sharing, and it was around this topic, and she was like, we spend so much time making decisions that we shouldn't even have to make.
Mm-hmm.
Like to the point that you said, right? Waking up in the morning, your routine, right? So when you get up in the morning, you're gonna drink a certain thing, or you're gonna do a certain thing, and you're gonna move this way or whatever. When I used to have to go into the office, I used to get my clothes ready at night. Because the one thing I didn't want to have to do in the morning is make a decision about what I was going to wear, because then that slows you down, right? Because I used to be the girl that I'm getting up in the morning and now I don't know what I'm going to wear, and is it this, is it that, right? And even though my closet is organized well, you still go through that. But that stuck with me when she was like, you know what? You also have to think about what are the things that you do every day that you really shouldn't have to be overthinking or making a decision about, especially for I would say the three of us, and also I could probably speak for Gina and Regina, is we have so many other things going on that we end up with decision fatigue. Because I know I suffer from decision fatigue, because when I go to a restaurant, if it's the same restaurant I've been to, I'm getting the same thing, because I don't even want to see a menu. I don't want to have to figure out what I'm going to eat.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I love that. It's about systems.
Yeah.
Yep.
Having systems in place for each area.
Yeah.
And touching on something that Netta started out with, when you're a mother and you're so used to getting into that routine and that structure when you have children, but then once you no longer have to do those things because your kids become self-sufficient, whether it's because they are now in their teens, well, let's face it, even when they're in their teens, you still gotta not get them up and say, are you wearing that? You should have gotten your clothes out the night before, and oh no, you are going to have breakfast today. So but let's say, well, they're adults, right? And you no longer have to do those things. Now it's time to be intentional about yourself, right? So now the routine has to be all about you. And it's definitely going to look different than what you're accustomed to, but it'll make you feel better, because now there are definitely things that you no longer have to make decisions about. You have to be intentional about removing yourself from those decisions. I don't know about you, Netta, but there were times when I was urging myself, I had to fight the urge to go upstairs to my son's room to tell him to get up, to make sure he gets to work on time. And I stopped doing that because he has to be accountable for his responsibilities and his actions. So now he doesn't have a car, so he relies on public transportation, which means that if he decides to sleep a little bit longer, then guess what? He's spending money on a rideshare service, whether it's Uber or Lyft. But that's his money. So if he wants to do that, which is, kind of reckless, but that's okay. I'm removing myself from that equation, because that's part of my self-care. I can't get involved with that anymore.
And I was going to ask you guys that, like, how has the transition been from having kids that you had to be responsible for? Like, in my mind as parents, you're always going to be responsible for them, even until the adults, but in a different way. So I was going to ask you, like, how do you make that shift? Like, at what point did you say, Sheila, I'm going to stop waking him up? Like, what was the point where you were like, that's it?
Well, I had to remind myself that, you know, he did it for 4.5 years when he was away at
Mm.
school, right? So why would I need to wake him up in the morning if he had a morning shift, or text him while I'm at work to find out why he was gone? Because he's already accustomed to doing it. If he feels he has the extra time, then okay, then guess what comes along with that? The possibility of you being late for work, which is
Mm.
not a good look. So, um, it is really about, for me, it was kind of like cold turkey, right? I just had to shut it off because it was me more so than it was him.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed to divest myself from his responsibilities. And
Oh my
once
God, I
I
love that.
realized,
Say that again. You needed to
I needed
divest.
to divest myself from his responsibilities. And it's not just the kids, because there are other things like you have to defend when that clock shuts off for work, you have to divest yourself from work, right? In
Mm.
order, because that is self-care. Because now you need to have time to wind down. You need to have time to think about maybe tomorrow, think about what you're going to do in your downtime. So while I was worrying about whether or not my son was being a responsible adult, I wasn't being one, because now I'm losing my accountability to myself. It all comes full circle.
Yeah, I love that because, like, even the way you said, right? And I hope somebody else heard this out there, right? The kids that go away to school, right? That they're on college campuses, the parents that are listening, when they come back home, remind yourself that everything you want to tell them to do, wash their clothes, get up, do whatever, they did that for 4 years without you, right? So that's such a huge lesson for anyone that has kids, right? But I love how you say you had to divest yourself of his responsibilities, because I honestly think for everybody, we all need to incorporate that, divesting ourselves from other people's responsibilities. Like I like to say, I am the president of the Mind My Business Ministry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Yep,
kind of
yep.
be the same way, right? But
Yeah.
I love that. Like, oh my God, divest. I'm gonna write that down somewhere.
I was thinking the two B words: mind your business and have clear boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Because that's kind of what that encapsulated, Sheila.
Yep, you're right.
There were
Yep.
some boundaries that needed to be created for yourself
Yep.
and minding your business. I read this book. Um, I can't think of the name of it at this second, but it talks about the three businesses: God's business, other people's business, and your business.
Mm.
Anxiety and stress comes from you not being in your business.
Yep.
Mm.
That's it. You trying to
Trying
mind
to
God's business and
control,
other business.
yeah, trying to control something that you have no control over.
Yeah. It's true. I just had this conversation with someone. It was a younger person. And we were talking, they were telling me all this, and I was like, listen, at some point, and I said, I can say this because I've done the work, because I've been where you were, right? I was telling them, I said, but at some point, you have to realize, right, that you can only be in control of your response to either the situation or the person or the thing that is doing whatever you believe they're doing to you or saying to you. So like you said, right, it's that minding your business. Like, what part of this can I control,
Right.
and how is this going to impact? And like, even with the conversation with this person, at one point I was like, okay, I feel like I have exhausted all of the like I've told you, like, what I would do, because I never tell people what they should do. This is what I would do in the situation, right? I've asked you questions. I kind of gave you a little, what would you do? Why would you do? And you have an answer for all of it. So I kind of feel like I've exhausted this conversation. We've exhausted this conversation.
Mhm. Yep.
So it's time for me to move on. Right?
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
I think that's where a boundary comes in, right? That boundary of knowing when you have to disengage from a conversation or a situation, or just going back to my little vertical thing, right? So I was out Thursday, I was out Friday, I was like in bed literally 2 days, right? So in my mind, I was saying to my sister, because I was like, I'm going to be in a house all weekend. I can't go anywhere. I can't drive, right? So, you know what? I might just hop online and, clean up emails and see what I have, because I haven't been there for 2 days. And then I was like, on Saturday, I was like, nope, you're not going to do that. I don't care if you just walk around in a circle in this house. Right?
Your house, your circle.
You're not going to go online. Right. And so I, did some stuff, walked around, watched some movies and TV like I normally don't do, slept a little more. But I really do think it is that because I am so intentional. Like, you guys know, I love intention, that I now, even when I tell myself I'm going to do something, it's like I go back and intentionally be like, nah, that's not a good idea.
But that's a great point. Just because you thought something was a good idea initially doesn't mean you have to follow through once you realize it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another form of self-care.
It is releasing yourself and acknowledging, giving yourself grace. All of those things help with that emotional well-being that is part of the topic. When we put extensive pressure on ourselves to be something that we're not, putting ourselves in that God position, there's going to be pressure and stress with that. So just being aware of when to step back, when to take a moment, when to reassess.
Yeah.
It's okay to do that.
Yeah. And it's okay to do, I think, a lot of it too, when it comes to and we're talking, for those of you joining Woman to Woman show, New You Nation Network, we're talking about just pouring back into ourselves and how that impacts our emotional well-being. I think the other thing is doing a lot of this without guilt.
Mm.
Because wasn't there a time when you would say, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to do this, and you were like guilty because you felt like you should be doing something else, or you should be doing something? Or
for me, the guilt would come when I felt like I wasn't being to someone else what I wish I had to myself.
Mm. Mm.
So taking on something much larger than a decision.
Mm.
Being in a space of, man, it would be nice to have X, Y, and Z. It would have been really great in this situation to have had that go-to person, and then trying to fill that gap in other people's lives, not even realizing that's what I was doing. But it's that self-awareness. You have to reassess.
It is so true. Like I was telling the young person I was talking to, like at one point I was like, I can say this because I've done this as well, is where I'm going over a scenario and I'm talking about these other people, and I'm more concerned about the feelings and these other people than I am about my own feelings and how it's going to impact me, right? And what the result is going to be for me. That there came a point in my life where I was like, nobody's going to love me more than I love me. Nobody's going to take care of me better than I take care of me.
There you go.
And so, that was like a huge realization for me. So I was saying to the person, I was like, that's something I need you to really think about. I need you to think about how you gonna put yourself first and not feel like that's being selfish? Right. And for you to, as parents, I'm sure you dealt with that a lot, because as parents, it's just natural to put your children, right, first, and then your wives as well. So your husbands. So how do
Well,
you navigate that space? How have you navigated that space?
I feel a little differently about, being mom to my kids versus me being a friend to someone else, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So they at most points in their lives, I am the constant. My husband and I are the constant. We are the advisors. We are the ones who provide guidance. So I don't have an issue with pouring from that perspective, but also giving them tools to make decisions for themselves. Once you get them to a certain point, you have to let them grow and experience things and figure it out, and allow them to come back and ask questions versus just giving them the answers to everything, right? So from a mother's perspective, I take that role. God picked me for that. So I take that very, very seriously. And so in that regard, I don't necessarily put myself first,
Okay.
when there's someone depending on me in a certain role.
Yeah.
And also, I'm coming from a perspective of serving in ministry. Ministry is sacrificial. So, finding a balance between those roles and then also self-care is important.
Yes.
And what about you,
Yeah.
Sheila? How have you navigated?
Well, and that is absolutely right. And I had to actually kind of start doing that early on, even with the schoolwork, making my son realize that he's responsible for his education. I'm there to support. This is on you. I used to tell my son to eat this is the easiest time in your life, right? So all you have to do is go to school and get great grades. I'll take care of the rest. I'm taking care of the major stuff, right? I'm making sure that you have shelter, that you have food, that you have a spiritual foundation. I am making sure that whatever you need, I have it for you. Your major focus and responsibility is this. I can help you along the way when you got questions. And again, the educational system is quite different when our kids were growing up than it is when we were growing up. So talk about boundaries, right? So when the child comes home and says, but mom, this is the way that I'm taught in school, then it's like, that's when you allow you have to allow the son now to become the teacher, because you don't want to interrupt across that boundary, because I can show you on paper how we used to do it, but if that's not how it's being taught to you now, then that's going to throw the whole system off, and it's probably going to affect your grade. So I have to allow you to now show me how it was done so that I can help you from there, provided I understood how it was shown to you. But all I could do at that time was just provide the guidance and the support and whatever assistance. I could not make the decisions for you.
That's good. That's good. So, if you're just joining us, this is the Woman to Woman show on the New You Nation Network, and I'm going to interrupt our conversation for a little bit of a celebration, because we, the New You Nation Network, has hit 3,500 subscribers.
Yeah! Congratulations Us.
Celebration worthy.
Yeah.
Celebration worthy.
So yeah, so our founder, the founder of the network, kudos and congratulations to her. Congratulations to us for showing up right on these Monday nights. But yeah, so we are talking about pouring back into ourselves and how self-care supports our emotional well-being. I actually want to talk about, the notion that when people think about self-care, they automatically think about manicures and pedicures and massages, right? And although that is great, right? I go for my little annual physical for my birthday. I really do want to talk about the notion that I would love for women to think about self-care in a broader sense and be intentional about what are things that you can do that actually are for your mental, right, and emotional health. Like even if it's just like I was telling you, Netta, right? For the time I took off for my birthday, I usually would go away, but I decided to stay home. And let me tell you, just cleaning off my patio, getting rid of the pollen, bought a new little outdoor rug, right? Rearranged it, then just sitting out there and just sitting still, right? And just looking out and breathing in some fresh air. And, to me, that was like, oh my God, it was so relaxing. It was like kind of the best self-care. And I was talking to one of my girlfriends, and I was like, she's like, oh, so what you been doing on your days off? And I'm like, oh, I get up and I sit out on the patio. And so she was like, well, why can't you do that on the days that you work?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what? Why can't I do that on the days that I work? Why can't I be intentional about when I get up early, opening up that little patio door, sitting outside, having my quiet time, right? So talk to me about some of the things that you guys do that are outside of like getting the nails done, the hair done, the feet done, you know.
I like to think of things that replenish.
Mm.
For me, that's self-care. Eating whole food, dense nutrition, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, um, going for a walk, getting some sunlight. Those are all things that replenish us so that we can show up as our best selves.
Mhm.
So self-care doesn't have to be expensive, but it does have to be intentional.
Yeah, definitely intentional.
Yeah,
And an investment.
like
Mm-hmm.
you were saying, simply getting some fresh air, getting
Yeah.
some sunlight, enjoying the space that you already own.
Yeah.
And rearranging, getting that fresh rug or a new look or, for the space that you're going to spend your time in. That's all very helpful, replenishing, and that is the real self-care because guess what? If you don't take care of this part of you, your
Mhm.
physical part of you, the mental suffers, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Your relationships suffer
Yep.
because you're depleted. And I was thinking about this a little earlier today. Nobody has an issue when you say, I got to refill the gas tank in the car.
Mm.
That's expected, right? And if you don't, people really grasp without a lot of thought what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Why don't we see ourselves that way?
And oh my God, that's such a great analogy, right? Because it's the filling up the gas tank, and it's also the panic that you put yourself into when you're not intentional about filling it up before it reached the little line where the light go off. Right?
Yep.
Right.
And
And
there
so,
are warning signs, lights
yeah,
for us.
yeah.
We
And
just
and
have
so
to pay
that's so
attention.
great. That and like it's funny because I'm talking to my mom for Mother's Day. no, what did my mom know? It was my girlfriend today. And she's like, how you feeling? I'm like, I'm great. And I said, I'm feeling better. And she said, oh, so God slowed you down. And I said, yeah, but he didn't need to slow me down like that, right? But but the point that she was making was that sometimes like vertical can just come on. So I'm not saying that, I could have had any warning signs, but there probably was something going on in my body that if I was paying attention, I could because it's something that doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. So I know the symptoms and when it could be coming on. And so I think it's such a great analogy of you using the gas tank, right? And filling up, but also the fact that there are so many warnings in our car that when we're low on gas, when the engine is going out, right? When the tires are low, right? There's so many things in a car that tell you when it's about to have an issue, but we don't listen to those things in our body, right? So that's a good one. So if you're out there listening, start listening to your body.
There you go. Yeah, the body doesn't lie.
Yeah, it really doesn't. Like I, slept so much this weekend to like by Saturday, I was up late because I was like, I done slept so much, right? But I still was able to just sit back, relax, watch TV. But sometimes your body just needs that. It just needs rest, especially when you're someone like me that you getting 5 hours here, 4 hours here. I'm always working on making sure I get enough sleep. So I'm getting better. I'm getting closer to that 6 hour, 7 hour mark. But there are people that literally go on 4 hours, 5 hours, and they think that's fine. And eventually the body's going to crash.
Come on, Netta.
Repair work happens when we sleep.
Yeah.
So just like, again, routine maintenance for your vehicle, people spend more time caring for that inanimate object than they do the one. We don't get a replacement. We can't just go buy another one of these. Nope. So to me, that heightens the importance of paying attention. That headache didn't just happen. Right? That hitch in your hip didn't just happen. There were things leading up to that. But again, we don't have the blinking lights. We don't have the automated response. We do, but not necessarily in the visual sense that a vehicle does. But if you pay attention, your body talks. And so, whether it's dehydration, whether you've been eating too much sugar, or things like that, what kind of fuel are you using? You can't expect the output from whole foods and vegetables that you get from something that's a lab creation and they label it as food. Anyway, that's a whole other topic.
Like the McNuggets that stayed out in the experiment. Who did the experiment? I don't even remember.
But there's a pediatrician who's had a Happy Meal out in her office for nearly 20 years that has not molded. And that's what's considered food? You want to tell me that's food?
That doesn't mold after 20 years.
And so what does that do for the cellular, the smallest part of who we are? So there are multiple facets to self-care. What you choose to fuel your body with determines how your body performs.
Yeah. I would actually say that because I know when I gave up like drinking sodas and like I predominantly drink water. So that's like when I'm not feeling well. So when I'm not feeling well, I think orange juice cures all. So I always get orange juice, right? Right. So, but I predominantly drink water. But I will tell you, this time I literally in my water, I put a little ginger because when I looked up in my little book, in my book, Vertical, what can you use? Ginger, lavender, peppermint, right? And so for anybody that's wondering, I'm talking about essential oils, right? I'm not going to say the brand, but I'm talking about essential oils. So anybody that's listening, I had a little vertical episode recently, and of course I called the telehealth and they called in a prescription, but then I was like, wait a minute, let me Google what oils can I use? So at night, I put some lavender on my feet. I put the ginger and peppermint behind my ears. And then in my water, I was like putting different oils that I could ingest. And I will honestly say, I felt the difference. Right. And then I, of course, diffused peppermint. That's my favorite. But yeah, so I think it is really important to also start to think about the natural products we use, because that's self-care as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just jump in real quick? The brand does matter. We're just not calling it out tonight. If you have questions, reach out to Theo, Sheila, or myself, because we can all point you in the right direction.
Exactly.
Absolutely point you in the right direction. There was a time when, and this was years ago, I'm a coffee drinker. I love tea, but I'm also a coffee drinker. So I used to have coffee with my cream and sugar. Okay.
Yeah,
If it wasn't light, it wasn't right.
yeah.
I made the conscious decision because I couldn't understand how people drank black coffee. And I'll be honest with you, for the longest time, I thought it was for them, right? Only a certain demographic of people,
Yeah.
certain ethnicity of people drank black coffee. But then I realized that I knew all of that sugar wasn't good for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it started to hit me that, well, all of that cream, because I like cream in my coffee, not milk. All of that cream can't be healthy either. So I first started, because some things take baby steps. So I first started with no sugar. And for me, it was cold turkey. I needed to go straight from A to Z. So I was still having my cream, but no sugar. And then one day I said, because then all of a sudden you start discovering things, right? You discover that there are so many different types of coffee, right? And I realized that we're being fed certain types of coffee, right? And in the commercial world, in the stores, in the office, and that if you are drinking the right type of coffee, you don't need to add a thing to it. So again, cold turkey in just one day, started drinking coffee black.
Wow.
And then as I learned, because not only that, but then that gave me an appreciation for the actual flavor of the coffee. And this is one of the things that you kind of start learning over the years. For those people that eat beef, right? Same thing with the steak. We tend to eat it. It's got to be killed dead, well done, right? Don't give me anything that has any blood, right? But then after a while, you're just like, I'm not digesting this right. And how is it really tasting? So you have to kind of come off of that too, and just gradually start with the. Now I'm not saying eat rare. I'm not at rare, and I don't eat a lot of beef. However, I will not eat meat, well done beef, right?
Wow.
But it was, things that were gradual. And I also had to do that with increasing my water intake. So, soda, sweet teas, right? Couldn't just be cold iced tea. It had to be Southern style sweet tea because that's what I was raised on, right? And if I didn't have any of that, then the powdered Lipton would do.
Yeah.
Um, so same thing with that. It was just like I made the conscious decision to stop ingesting sodas and artificial drinks
Yeah.
and just drink water. Every now and then I may have a hankering for it and I'll have it, but on a regular, you will always see me with water. I will go to a restaurant and order water with lemon, preferably, but if not, I'm fine with drinking water, very little or no ice.
Yeah.
So it's just, again, here's our word, being intentional about it. When you have to make the conscious decision and the effort to do better for yourself.
But
And
I
you'd be
love that.
amazed of how much, even how much mental clarity you
Yeah.
gain when you start making those changes.
Mhm. And so, for those of you who are just joining us, this is a Woman to Woman show on the New You Nation Network, and we are talking about how self care, and for all of us, we're intentional about it, how that impacts your well being, right? And so, Chill is the queen because right now I'm so impressed of going cold turkey, because right, but you honestly do see the differences and feel the differences in your body. Because I remember one of my friends at some point had really bad fibroids, right? And so her physician said she needed to give up like fatty food. So she had to stop eating like beef and pork and that kind of stuff. That was the recommendation from the physician. And I remember me and a couple of our other girlfriends was like, okay, we're going to do this with you, right? To just be supportive. I never went to this day. It's probably been over 15, maybe 20 years. I have not gone back to eating beef or pork, right? I don't miss it. Every now and then I'm like, I see some good oxtail, right? And I'm like, right? But for the most part, I love seafood. So for the most part, I'm definitely eating seafood, and I still occasionally eat chicken. But for the most part, because nowadays the chickens scare me. I'm just gonna say that because they are huge. When you go out to some of these restaurants, I'm like, what are they injecting these chickens with? Because why is this drumstick so big, right? Or this wing so big? But I digress. But I say that to say that it really is important, like what you put into your body. And so, as we're coming up on the final hours, let talk to us a little bit about some of the natural things that we can do, right? Even like Sheila said, starting small, right? To make sure that not only what we're putting in our body, but on our body is appropriate.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think the first thing to do is to talk to someone that can walk alongside the journey with you. We know there is so much noise on social media, in other areas that talk about try this, try that, use this, not that. There's a lot of confusion surrounding it. So talk to someone who can just get you from point A to point B, straight line. You know, what your goals are matters to you, and how your body operates is unique to you.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is not for everyone. So that's the first thing I'll say. And the next thing in regards to what you put on you, use around you, and take in you impacts how well your body responds physically, emotionally, mentally, you name it. All of you is impacted by the fuel and the chemicals that you choose to participate with. So if something is created in the lab, and most things are, that's readily available to us from the store shelf, even if it's labeled natural. That
Mm.
word is important. So you have to know what you're looking for. Therefore, you want to connect with someone that can just decrease the noise, right? And help you reach your goals. It's attainable, it's possible. We see it every day. So if you're using the scented body washes and lotions and things like that, we know you can't go outside and grow that. That means your body has to figure out what to do and how to break that stuff down once it's inside you. And again, skin being the largest organ, if it goes on you, it's in you. The other thing is your environment, what types of chemicals you're using, whether the form of candles or plug-ins or all of that. Just do a little research. We know there are some very significant issues associated with those chemicals. Again, connect with someone to help you figure out the easiest path. Really get a clean, plant-based, organic option because you are worth it. Yes, it may look like a little bit of an investment in the beginning, but you're going to pay now or pay later. I'd rather pay now and be well than pay later and try to reverse some things. Get on the front end of it. And so go, I mean, here we go. It's not necessarily all about what you use in you, on you, around you. Go for a walk. Your mental health depends on it. Movement is important, whether it's a walk or the gym or however you choose to do it. Move your body. We were not designed to just sit. And in this world of access to everything, we are some of the most disconnected people there are. So find a way to involve yourself with those that really care about you. That's healthy. That gives you an outlet. It helps you use your brain because we know cognition is an issue with a lot of people, that are in front of screens and things like that. You want to use your brain the way it was designed to, not just read. Use it to take that thought, process it, and be able to communicate it and take information back in. That's connection with others, right? So we have to do those things as well. So many ways to support our mental wellness that have nothing to do with what we may deem as mental health, the overall term. Taking care of yourself includes that. You can smell lavender, for instance, not the lab created one. That's about 90% of the ones you have access to. We're talking about the lavender plant that grows without chemicals. Smelling that, there is an emotional component to that. That's why it's calming. You hear it all the time. Use lavender. You can sleep better. It's relaxing. Well, that's because God put properties inside of plants to help us emotionally. That's why citruses are uplifting. It's just something about smelling that fresh squeezed orange or lemon. It's something about that your body likes, it craves, and will respond to on multiple levels, physically as well as emotionally. So we could go on, but just know there are multiple ways to support your well-being, and you can start small, as Sheila mentioned, and build on it. The important part is to get a strong foundation. We never want to build on a weak foundation. We know what that can look like. So just reach out to someone that can help you. I am one of those people who can guide you through that process. And I'm sure Sheila and Theo have their experiences, and that's the beauty of this walk. We all are unique and have our own experiences that we can share from. So whoever it is that you feel connected to during this call, touch base with us. We're here to help you. That's why we show up on these calls, to be a blessing and help you get from where you are to where you want to be. You're muted.
Theo, you're on mute.
I was going to say definitely connect with Manetta Fields for all things, natural, and really just to figure out. And for Sheila, I would say honestly, because another way to unwind, and it's not that you're doing it all the time, but is a nice little glass of wine.
That's
Shirley
right.
is our wine expert.
I have wine. Boy, do I have wine. And yes, that is what now don't get I do not have wine every single day and
No,
night.
that's
Okay.
what I'm
There are
saying.
times when I come home and honestly, I don't feel like having it.
Yeah.
I can go sometimes 2 or 3 days without having wine. Um, but yes, that is also a way to unwind. Sit
Mm-hmm.
back and have a glass of wine. You can have it while you are reading a book. You can have it while you're watching your favorite TV show. You can have it while you're watching us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are reasons why when we talk about going outdoors, just sitting back on your patio or on your porch with a nice glass of wine. Sometimes it helps to sit back and have a glass of wine in silence with no one talking to you, no sounds around, just being still and one with your glass of wine.
Yeah.
So, it's just finding the relaxation in the wine and be actually becoming educated with wine too. Helps you appreciate it a lot more. Just as I talked about becoming more educated with coffee beans, becoming educated about wines and the different grapes and the regions, and the methods of making wine or champagne too is a great way to relax. Going to becoming one with nature, perfect trip is going visiting a winery because
Mm-hmm.
you're sitting outdoors. There are some wineries that specialize in organic wines. There are some that specialize also in non alcoholic wines. So you
Mm-hmm.
can still enjoy a glass of wine without alcohol. So
Mm-hmm.
you can also sit back and look out into the vineyards and see the grapes, miles and miles of vines of grapes,
Wow.
and appreciate again what Mother Nature has, what Mother Nature is creating. Because to see, you're looking at something that is actually coming up from the ground and just
Mm-hmm.
visualizing it. You can talk about going into museums, and which is also a good way to unwind as well. You all oftentimes see these paintings with wines, whether they're be on the vine or it's just a bunch of them and stuff. You can now see the same thing while you're sitting back and relaxing in the outdoors. So that is a great way to have some downtime.
Okay. And I'm just going to put the disclaimer out there. That is if you do not have a problem with alcohol.
That is right.
so
That is
so we don't want nobody saying we told you to go out and drink.
right. We told you to go and have some wine. No, no. Which is
No.
why I talked
We
about
just
having non-alcoholic wines as well.
mhm. And it's crazy because I was somewhere recently and you guys know I don't drink really, right? Every now and then. But I had like a virgin mojito. And I was like, oh, this is not bad, right? Because sometimes it's just that. Sometimes it's just having a little something that makes you think you're having a drink, right? But I do think the most important thing, and I'm gonna make this my final thought, and then you guys can go around and have your final thought, is we have to be, as we started out, intentional about self-care. But also I think it's also redefining what that looks like. Because some people think self care means, like I said, you go for a manicure, pedicure. But like Netta said, like Sheila said, self care does not have to be expensive. Self care could just be taking a walk. Like I love a walk. Like my first day, Sunday was the first day I really put on some clothes or workout clothes, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna take a 5-minute walk to the mailbox and a 5-minute walk back from the mailbox because I had not been outside, right, other than on my patio. And it was just a way for me to get out, get some air. And like you said, Netta, to move my body. You guys know I'm really into working out. So when I can't do it, I try to do something that I can at least get my body moving. But the one thing that I want to end with, and I want everyone to hear from the three of us on the Women to Women show on the New You Nation Network is I want to challenge everyone that's listening now or who will listen later, right? To be intentional about finding something that you can start doing for yourself as a routine, right? Not just here and there, but as like how I talked about being better at sitting on my patio in the morning, right? To have quiet time, right? I want to challenge everyone to really think about what can I intentionally do to positively impact my self-care by starting to do something for just myself. That's my final thought.
Awesome. I would say assess your environment from beginning to end, for the time you get up, the time you go to bed, and reduce your chemicals that you're using on your body, because over time, they do have an impact on us. Fuel your body with great whole food, dense nutrition, not the store, but the type of food. And the other thing, because I love God and I love His Word, starting my day with His Word, that's the best intention I've been able to find, because it gives you how to proceed. It fuels you from a different place. When you feel empty, it goes in and fills in those gaps, and you have something to give from. So that would be my final word.
I love that because I have right here my little daily scripture that I turn every day. And Sheila.
So we have become a nation of convenience,
Mm.
overconsumption,
Mm.
and being sedentary, all of which lead to non-prioritization of yourself and your well-being. But it's never too late to kick that habit. Set a goal. We rely on electronics, the digital age. If you want to become obsessed with something and reaching a goal, get some kind of device that you can wear, a fitness tracker to count your steps. There you go.
Yep.
Let that be an intentional obsession, because it's a perfect way for you to move and prioritize yourself, because then that's going to allow you to realize that taking care of me comes first every day.
And the one thing I hope everyone heard from all three of us was none of this will happen overnight. Don't try to do it all at once. Take baby steps and call Netta.
Yes.
Because I will honestly say, I'm just speaking from my heart, right? I know that the conversations that I have had with you that have resulted in me making better choices about what I put on my body and put in my body have truly made a difference. And I'll tell this straight story before we have to get off, because I know we're over. But the story with the deodorant, the natural deodorant. Remember when I first started that natural deodorant and I freaked out because my arms got black, right? And then what I realized over time was that was the toxins that were coming out of my body. Right? And so now over time, I think I've been using natural deodorant now for like over a year or maybe almost 2 years. And now I don't experience that anymore. right? And so honestly, and I'm telling people, because I'm telling you, I'm the baby step girl, right? I can't go cold turkey, whatever. Like I am, there are some things that I could just be like, but most things I'm like, okay, I gotta gradually get to it because I am the person that cannot do delegation. So I have to slowly let go of stuff. But I still like to say that if you don't talk, you should talk to each and every one of us. Because like Netta said, we all can help you in a different way. But if you're really looking to make some changes in your health, you want to talk to Netta. And you want to talk to Sheila so you can stop going to get the manicure, then you could just use the nail strips on your fingertips. And if you want some help being intentional, then reach out to me because that is my word every day, all day. People probably are tired of hearing it. But honestly, if we're not living with intention, then we're not living how we're supposed to be because God means for us to live with intention, right?
That's right.
Everything in his word is about being intentional about how we treat people, how we show up, how we live. So that is my final little soapbox statement. And we thank you for joining us again on a Monday night on the New You Nation Network. This is the Woman to Woman show. We thank you for helping us reach 3,500 subscribers. So if you have not already done so, we still need you to like and share and subscribe because we hit 3,500. Now we're going to our next number, right? So we need you to keep on subscribing and have a great night, a great rest of the week until we meet you here again on Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a great night, everyone.
Right.
Good night.